Hey you guys, this is AJ's prison interview along with my commentary. I did have the entire interview in the first video along with some extras. However, towards the end, it was getting a little funky with the sound and with the way the pictures were landing. So I had to break it up and divide it. So this part 3 is the first part of the interview, and of course part 4 will be the second half and the last half of this interview. Okay, so hope you guys enjoyed it. If you haven't heard the interview, and if you had, take a listen to it anyway. I got some extras in it that you might just want to know.
I'm doing good. Considering the circumstances, as good as I can be, but I'm doing well.
How have things been here the last few weeks?
It's been definitely an adjustment, coming to a new facility, moving again and all that, getting, comfortable as possible here, meeting new people, and finally moving to population and not being isolated like I have been pretty much this whole time. So it's just been another adjustment, but it's going well so far.
How was that, the just kind of being by yourself until you were moved in Gen Pop?
Honestly, even from juvenile days till now, I've always been in a cell for practically 23 hours a day, really 24 hours a day. So being by myself is something I've kind of become used to. It doesn't really bother me, but, getting a cellie for the first time. And
Getting a cellie for the first time. I am pretty sure his parents never thought that their son would be saying stuff like that. Terrible. None of us want our children to say those words, getting a cellie for the first time, a cellmate.
That whole experience, it was a little nerve-wracking at first because you have no idea what to expect, but God put me in a good situation, good guy, so things are going well.
Why did you want to talk to us today?
I just feel like it's important for me to finally be able to really speak, for the last 7 years with us being in trial and stuff like that and fighting the case. My attorneys felt it was best for me not to really speak out. So I went with their lead, and now where we're at, I felt it was time for me to be able to speak my truth.
So let's talk about that, your truth. There's been 3 trials.
Mm-hmm.
The first 2 were hung juries. The most recent third one, you were convicted for killing both of your parents.
Yes, sir.
The questions everyone want to know is, why did you kill your parents?
I didn't kill my parents. I would say falsely convicted, because I don't believe the conviction that took place was the result that should have happened. It should have been either another hung jury or a not guilty verdict. There's no way ever I would have in a million years imagined being here, but here I am.
So if he didn't kill his parents, who killed his parents? His brother? That everybody tried to blame it on? Who killed his parents? And he was expecting another hung jury? Why? You shouldn't be expecting anything when you are a defendant.
And, it's just about taking it one day at a time. The appeal process can be a slow process, but at the end of the day, I know I'm going to walk out of here. This isn't how my story ends. This isn't how things go for me. It's just continuing to keep my trust in God regardless of what comes my way.
He's going to walk out of there when he is 63. So he's right about that. He will walk out of there one day, but he will be 63. He will be older than his parents was when they were murdered while they slept.
But yeah, absolutely not. It's a false conviction.
Then if it's not you, then who?
I can't give you that answer. If I knew that answer, I wouldn't be in here. If my family knew that answer, we would have given that over to the authorities as quick as possible, but it's just due to their lack of investigation and them not pursuing anything outside of me from that night, like they've said on the stand. It's put us in a situation to where we don't have anything, and we're probably gonna have to live the rest of our lives not knowing what happened to my parents, and that's unfortunate, but it's the situation the Houston Police Department and the DA's office has put us in.
Talk to me about how was it for you during these last 3 trials, just sitting and listening to everything?
I don't, I wouldn't wish it on anybody. It's horrible to have to sit there and hear the things that I had to listen to be able to have really me and my parents' relationship dissected and broken down in a way that the DA felt it was, when in reality it wasn't like that. Sure, my parents got on me. Everyone read the text messages, everyone saw what was being said, but at the end of the day, my parents loved me and I loved them more than anything. That was the relationship they had. They were strict on me. They knew the potential that I had. They knew where I could go in my life, and that's how they were, but it was never anything more than that. So having to sit there and especially listen to the DA, try and say they're speaking for my parents or they're doing what my parents would have wanted, and just things like that I just felt was really out of place and just disrespectful to my grandparents in general, because those were their kids and they're sitting in court, and we all know if either one of my parents would have made it or if both of my parents would have made it, this would have never been a situation we would have been in. They would have made it very clear that they didn't believe in what the DA was trying to do, and what they were trying to say about our relationship just wasn't true. It wasn't true.
You mentioned the part when the prosecutor said that they were speaking through your mom specifically. How did that make you feel?
Very frustrated, because it's just, like I said, it was really disrespectful. My grandparents are sitting right there, and to say that you're speaking for their daughter and their daughter-in-law when you don't know, you never knew their daughter or daughter-in-law. You're just reading text messages and assuming, hey, this fits our narrative, so let's say Dawn felt this way, when in actuality, Dawn didn't feel that way. My mom was hard on me, she was hard on my sister, she was hard on my brother, she was hard on everyone. That's just how my mom was. But she loved even bigger, and that never changed just because I was doing things I shouldn't have.
I don't know Dawn either, but I'm speaking as a mother, and she, through the texts, was frustrated with her son. She loves her son, of course, but frustrated. He's not doing the right thing. He is coming in late. He is smoking weed. He is messing up in school. He is pretending that he can just break the rules out in the streets in this car. I can understand everything in those text messages that she was going through. So yeah, you can speak for her.
So just to have that narrative push that my mom felt that way about me or anything like that, it was hard.
Talk to us about your relationship with your parents.
I felt like I had a great relationship with my parents. Despite, I was a 16-year-old kid. I snuck out to be with my girlfriend, who's now my wife. I was smoking weed. I was getting bad grades. I wasn't doing well in school my sophomore year, but at the end of the day, it was still a normal relationship. I was with my dad all the time, going to the gym, working out 5 days a week. We still laughed, we still joked, we did things, we had family events, everything was normal. I just made some goofy kid mistakes at that age, and it was taken and blown into something that it really wasn't. And, it's hard to look back, because after going through those 3 trials and hearing all the things that they've said, it's kind of just caused my mind to almost kind of forget some of the good things, because it's been pushed on me nothing but negative. And
so being that he went through these 3 trials, it's hard to remember the good times he had with his parents because of all the negative stuff that he heard. That sounds like bullshit. That sounds like bullshit. It doesn't matter whatever you go through, you'll always remember the good times. Sometimes that's all you got is the good times. See, it's the opposite in me. I remember all the good times about my parents now because they're no longer here. And the bad times, I can remember those too, but I'd rather focus on the good times. It makes me happier.
It sucks. It really does. But at the end of the day, I know how my parents felt about me, and I know how I felt about them, and that's what I just choose to hold on to regardless. Does
Looking back at your relationship with your parents change things for you now because you're a father yourself with your own son?
Definitely. I told my family all the time, with having Hendrix for just 2 years, now he's 3, it's I I see so much of understanding what parenting is like from my parents' perspective. I see how the things my dad tried to instill in me at a very young age, why it was so important. And I see a lot of myself in my son. So,
like I stated in the other videos, the kid is adorable, but I hope like hell you don't see a lot of yourself in that child. I hope you don't. Because first of all, the kid is only 3. 2, 3, you had him for 2 years where you were being a father. That's the fun stuff when they're toddlers. 5 and 6, fun stuff. 8 and 9, still fun. Try 16. Try 16. You're 16. You were 16 when this happened. Try 16. Maybe you wouldn't be around. No.
it's like I can see why my parents were the way they were with me and things like that, but it's being a parent's a blessing. I absolutely love it, and I'm grateful that I had the time with my parents and they were the great parents that they were, and they instilled so much in me in those 16 years that.
Thing is, AJ, they were supposed to instill a lot more in you. You never stop needing your parents. You don't. And I'm not talking financially. Sometimes you do too, but you never stop needing them. You never stop wanting to know where they are, what they think about this, what did they do, what should I do with it. You never stop needing them. You don't. So 16 years, no, it should have been way longer. They should have been around way longer. You need your parents way longer.
I feel like I've prepared to be a father even at a young age, but it's just, I definitely see why my parents were the way they were, but I'm grateful for it,
When's the last time you saw Kate, like face to face here?
The last time we were face to face would have been probably about somewhere early September, something like that. So it's been a while.
And I don't believe that this child was planned. I mean, it could be. I know sometimes it's easy to get pregnant, especially when you're young. Trust me, I know. But that son of yours, Hendrix, his name is, that son of yours is going to grow up to know that his father is in prison for killing his grandparents. He's going to know that. He's going to Google it, and he's going to know
While
that.
you were still in Harris County?
Yes, that was while I was still in Harris County. She came every Wednesday and Saturday to come see me while I was there. So since I moved, I haven't seen anyone except, I got to see Brandon, but outside of that, I haven't seen her or my grandparents. I told them it's a far drive out here. And then flights and things like that, they can be expensive. So I was like, you guys just hold off, we'll figure this out, and hopefully we can get me moved back closer. So we'll see how that plays out.
Let's go back to the day you were convicted.
Mm-hmm.
What was going through your mind once you heard that the jurors rang that bell? That they either had a question or they're ready for verdict? What were you and the team of attorneys talking about in your family?
I knew they had a verdict. So once that bell was rang, I knew the verdict that came in because I believe they said they rang it twice and that meant they had a verdict. So I went in there and I was with JL and she kind of let me know that it was a verdict. She heard the 2 bells. So for me, it was just a matter of, I was excited, honestly. I was like, we finally are at a place, we've got a jury that has heard all the evidence and they see the truth. And I was believing that was my chance to finally be done with all of this, to not have to ever be in a courtroom again, have to ever sit through another trial, or have to worry about with another hung jury, with the DA come back 5 years later or 10 years later and try and charge me again. I just felt that I was finally at that point of being able to move on with my life. But it was also nerve-wracking because there's also the flip side to it, which is what we ended up getting. And it was a whole bunch of emotions. But
The thing that I don't understand is the Armstrongs was both shot to death in their bed, and the alarm system was never triggered. There's only 2 people in the house, AJ and his little sister, and we heard on the 911 call, she was knocked out. You called her name about 7, 8 times. She was knocked out. But she didn't have a problem with her parents. you did.
But there was a little bit of excitement there, hoping that it was that time to be able to finally move on with my life.
Do you recall hearing Kate's or any of your family members after the verdict came down?
Hearing them, I turned around immediately when I was walking out to look at her because I just wanted her to know it's gonna be okay. Like, I love you. And I wanted them to see me be strong right in that moment because I knew that what was coming, it was gonna be tough, but I wanted them to know that I'm gonna be okay, that we're gonna get through this, we're gonna figure it out, I'm gonna be okay. And that's what I tried to do, but I could see everyone as they walked out, and it was obviously emotional, and it was emotional back there for me and my attorneys. You know, we really are a family.
See, AJ, you had a family. This is your family right here. You had a family and you chose to end it. That's what you chose to do. And why isn't he, if I'm in jail and my parents have passed away or were murdered right in the house that I was in, I'd be terrified that somebody came in and did. I'd be probably like the brother. I'd be terrified. I'd be freaking out, terrified. It just doesn't add up, AJ. The way you act, even right now, years later, it doesn't add up.
You know, I've been with Rick and Chris for 7 years. I've known Chris for as long as I can remember, and JL came in right before the first trial, and she's been amazing. So it's like, this wasn't just attorney and client. This was a family that had been built over the last 7 years. They saw me grow up from a 16-year-old kid to a 23-year-old.
AJ, you're still a kid. I don't care if you're 23 now, you're still a kid. Maybe a young adult, but to me, you're still a kid. Maybe when you get in your 30s, you won't be called a kid no more. You're still a kid. They've seen you grow up. Oh my God, since you were 16. AJ has really disassociated himself from this situation. He really has.
Father and a husband now, so things have completely changed, and they've been supportive every step of the way, and I couldn't thank them enough for everything they've done for me. I love the three of them with everything I have in me, and I would pick them to be my attorneys for anything life would ever throw my way. They're that great to me.
I want to ask some questions about the trial itself. What was going through your head leading up to the trial when you hear that there's been new evidence with the blood underneath the name tag?
Well, you saw the lawsuit that we filed. That was my immediate reaction.
Say it again?
I said the lawsuit that was filed was my immediate reaction. There was very clear to me, my family, my attorneys, that evidence was planted, because I don't understand how, after 7 years in a case of this magnitude, the day before trial, you come out and say, there's been new evidence that we've now discovered. I don't even know how that's possible, but that's what the DA's office did, and it's unfortunate. And I feel that being the newest piece of evidence to the case, the only thing that really changed from the first trial to the second trial to the third trial, I felt that that evidence was probably the reason what got me in here, unfortunately. And it sucks because it's planted. It's not, there's no other way around it in my eyes.
See, well, the jurors that prosecutor spoke to afterwards, and then they relayed that back to us, said that it was the 911 call and the interrogation of that night. They said after they heard that, they already said you did it. Does that make sense to you? Mm-hmm. So you understood why they would think you did it after the 911 call and the interrogation?
I would understand, but it's also, for me, that night, you're dealing with, at that time I was 16 years old. I was sitting in the back of a cop car for 6-7 hours, no sleep, no idea of what's going on with my parents. I'm asking these officers what's going on with my parents. I'm not getting any information. I'm taken downtown. Now I'm being questioned by these detectives. And for me, yes, there were things that were said that might have looked like I was trying to lie or cover something up, but at the end of the day, I was a 16-year-old kid at the time. I'm not have any experience with being investigated by police officers or know what to say.
AJ, you can't keep saying you were 16. You were 16. It doesn't matter. If it's the truth when you're 16, it's still going to be the truth when you're 23. You were lying a lot. With each trial, your some of your answers changed.
What's wrong or what's right in the moment, and if I went back and could do it all over again, I would have immediately just asked for my lawyer, because that probably would have put us in a different situation.
If you could go back, you would have just took your ass to sleep. Your parents would still be alive today, and I would have never knew about none of y'all. None of y'all, because I'm not a sports fan. Nothing. I wish you would have did it like that.
But I don't understand it at all, how the statement or the 911 call led to a guilty verdict, but that's what the jurors decided, and I don't hold any ill will towards them. That's what they felt after reading the case. That's how these things work. So
you said if you could redo it again after or while being interrogated, you would have immediately just stopped talking, asking for your attorney. Why didn't you do that?
I was trying to help. In my eyes at that time, I thought I was helping, giving the information that I felt would be able to best help just answering the questions that they had for me, honestly. And part of me didn't really understand that I was being accused until they started to really press me and things like that over like gunshot residue and all those different kinds of things. So for me, it was like, okay, you guys don't believe me and I'm not being accused of this. So that at that point, I always think back like, dang, okay, at that point, I probably should have been like, look, I don't even know if I have a lawyer, but I would like to have a lawyer now, because I felt the pressure of, okay, this is flipped from hey, let's get to know you and help me figure out what happened, to we're saying you did this type deal.
There was something during the interrogation call that comes out to us that days or days leading up to the murders, that you shot a gun through the floor. Just talk to us through that. What happened there? And you told investigators that you were doing it for a friend, to show off to a friend.
The whole gun incident, with that being shot through the floor, I believe they said it was days before, but it was week or two before. That wasn't something that was done like the day before the incident. And I believe I don't know if my sister testified to that or one of the two, but my parents were aware of it, and they also continued to say that there was like fresh sheetrock on the ground, but there was never any fresh sheetrock on the ground. There was, in any of the pictures that they showed, there was the bullet obviously, but that was kind of blended into the carpet. But again, it was just, with the way things went with my parents passing, it was able to be blown into something big that, oh my gosh, he was test firing and that's what he was doing and that was his whole plan. When in reality, it was just a 16-year-old kid playing around with a gun.
A lot of times juveniles think that if they commit a crime, that they will get juvenile time. Oh, I'm 14, 15. If I do this, I'll probably be out by 18. You know, if I take a whole person's life, probably have around 3 or 4 years to do, maybe up to 21. But sometimes it's not like that, AJ.
We hear those stories a lot nowadays, and a lot of them have unfortunate outcomes. But for me, it was just me being a kid. I didn't really think anything into it, just playing with a gun. So,
who was the friend that you were there with?
I'm not going to tell you that, Rowan. I'm not going to tell you that, Rowan.
Play that back twice, because that shit sound crazy. I'm not going to tell you that, Rowan. That shit sound crazy. He's either not going to tell you because it's the imaginary friend or it's the hitman he hired. Yeah. Yep. Sure is.
But do you think that friend could help you? Say, yes, I was there with them at that day. We did this not days before, but weeks beforehand.
I don't think it would have helped, only because like they had their mind made up about what they felt about me, you know? So I don't know if disclosing that information would have been beneficial to me or not. It could have been, It could not, but I don't really know, honestly.
Do you want that person to come forward and say, hey, I was with him that day?
No, not really. Just because I don't feel it's necessary to bring someone else into this, bring that person into this when it's already at this magnitude, this late in the case and things like that. So, you know, that's really why I never spoke on who the friend was at that time, because it just wasn't, I didn't think it would be beneficial. Or
It would have been beneficial if that person was a real person and could have helped you and wasn't part of a crime. Yeah, it would have been very beneficial.
I want to bring them into it either, because obviously with how things are and how big this case has become, it wasn't necessary to bring someone else into it that was really just an innocent bystander at the time.
But you're still saying someone else was there with you?
Oh yeah, that was never a lie. The things that were lies were very clear throughout the statement that they felt was a lie, but that was never a lie.
What were those things that you think were clearly lies?
About how I hadn't touched the gun. You know, that was clearly at one point I said that I hadn't touched the gun in forever. And that goes back to my whole point of, at first I felt the interview was going one way. And then at that point when I realized, oh snap, they are really trying to accuse me of this, the nerves hit and I just I lied for no reason. And I hate that I did that, because it put me in a situation of, look, we have this pattern of him continuing to lie, but I don't feel that, that's the thing that I hate that I just wasn't forthcoming about, because it wasn't that big of a deal, but I went about it the wrong way.
There was another incident that prosecutors kind of leaned on. This was the fire set in front of the door. Mm-hmm. What happened there?
The gasoline story, I don't really understand how there was gasoline on the carpet. That has always been something that was really confusing and a little suspect to our family, me, my family, and my lawyers, just about how gasoline was there, because there's no gasoline in the house. So are they trying to say that I took an alcohol bottle to a gas station and filled it up or something? I don't understand how that even came to be, but again, playing with matches, like I said, and on the pictures, I believe if you zoom in, there's actual match on the ground that's there. So that one was, again, just like the story that I told them. It's not something that I made up. It's not something that I lied about. It's the truth. I was playing with matches, being a goofy kid, and started a fire. And it was put out. My parents dealt with me, obviously, and we moved on from it.
So you're suggesting that was blown out of proportion?
I believe that the gunshot and the fire were both blown out of proportion solely because of what happened. And it fits their narrative to be able to say, hey, look, he test fired. Hey, look, he tried to burn the house down. And then he ended up killing his parents. It just fit their narrative. So that's why it was so important to them to be able to push that out. And it sucks because there's things that didn't fit their narrative that they never really disclosed or shared or put out there. So it's like, it's not really a fair shake that's given, you know? So I don't know why that's the way it is, but I've come to find out in this judicial system, that's kind of how things work.
What would you say were some of those things that didn't fit the prosecutor's narrative?
I would say the first thing that we always brought up was why did they never check the surveillance footage from the business right across, literally a house over? You know, there's businesses, when you come out and you make that left, there's businesses all down that street. There's businesses on the back street. If they were so confident and knew for certain that it was me, they could have easily just checked that security footage, and then boom, it would have either proved our case, which we know it would have proved our case.
So then your so-called lawyer family should have proved your case and got that footage.
Investigation, as they said many times throughout trial. I think another thing is which I believe it came out in the first trial, was the copycat note that was left. How is a note that's not even disclosed to the public that is left at the crime scene, how does a copycat note be left on a vehicle of someone who's close to the family at the time? How does that happen? How does the person who left that note leave a copycat note that's almost identical to the note that was left at the scene? Like, how does that happen? And I'm in jail at the time, so it obviously isn't me.